You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
A source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed it. In the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high. A lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar and Khatib.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm joined by a very special guest today. I want to give a little bit of background on how I found out about this person. So Mike Hugo is a medical sales professional. We've been, I think, connected on LinkedIn through some peers of ours. You know, he had been at Medtronic, NuVasive, and back in Medtronic. So I think because we both spent time in the spine world, that's how we found out about each other. I'm going to bring up an image here. So for those of you who are on Spotify or YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening to this on Apple, I'm going to include the link to this post in the show notes below. But one day I was on my LinkedIn feed and I came across this post before there was an update here. Essentially, Mike had gone on to share that he received a diagnosis of a glioblastoma. And in this video, which is now up to 9,600 likes, 941 comments, and 3,255 reposts. So it's safe to say this is the in terms of impressions, it's in the millions. He talks about receiving this diagnosis, which has a 100% death rate. And of course, in the background, a picture of his wife and two little girls. And he talks about the things that he's likely going to be missing in their life. And for me, when I saw this video, which was a little over a year ago, I was a new father. My son was just a few months old. And I see a lot of content on the internet that I get emotional about. I don't think I've cried so hard. And so I share that because the way I got Mike on the show today is about a month ago, I think I was on LinkedIn and I saw a post and I remember how happy I felt because I said, oh my God, like he's still alive. And it was, I was so relieved about that. He's transitioned into being a patient advocate and really driving a lot of awareness around these topics. So all that to say, let's jump right into it. Mike, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thanks, Omar. It's my pleasure. Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, and maybe, I want the listeners to kind of get a better understanding about the state of not just of glioblastomas, but of course, some of the other topics we talked about, we'll get into in a second, but maybe let's do a little background on you. Like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And, interestingly, how did you get into our great industry? Because not everybody starts out by saying, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go get into medical devices for a career. So what's your story?
Yeah. So I grew up a small farm town in Michigan, milk cows every single day before and after school, unless I was playing sports. And, I had a bet with somebody that I could finish an engineering degree in under 4 years. It was typically a 5-year process. And I'm pretty competitive. I just like to have a challenge. And so I got it done in just over 2 years. And then I had a 1-2 credit class left. So I was like, what do I do? And it was a year long. So I did a master's. I did Taiwan, India, Japan for my master's and finished the last 2 credits, joined Stryker as an engineer, and then did that. And I was 20 when they hired me. So then I realized for 3 years I was younger than the interns, and I realized that, man, these sales team, the marketing and sales, they have a lot of fun. And although the engineering was pretty easy for me because I grew up on a farm, so we have to solve our problems, I said, well, I'm going to get into sales. And let me tell you, it is really hard to jump from engineering to sales. And
I think you might, if I can just interrupt.
Yeah.
I noticed that, and I think you might be one of 3 people in my entire career that I've seen do that. One of those people is Intuitive's CEO Gary Guthart, because he was an engineer. It turns to like it's rare.
Yeah. So like I said, that was 20. For the first 3 years, I was younger than interns. And I said, well, how do I get into sales? And I remember the head of the marketing team, they said, well, you need a sales experience. And I was like, you guys hired me when I was 20, how do I get sales experience? So I started a beef jerky distribution company, and I used Cutco knife trainings, and I used the Kirby vacuum sales, and I created my own distributorship, which now I took my own photos, and I did all this marketing while I was still an engineer. And after I was at a Division I football game, and I had a tent, and I drove a beef jerky truck to and from work, and before and after work, I would restock. And so the president of the Striker division, I was slinging beef jerky on the weekend, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" Because I was working on a big FDA recall for them, and so he knew me. And
this is a president of the whole division, or a sales, or
of the division for like the beds and stretchers.
Got it. Okay.
And he goes, everyone calls me Hugo. Hugo, what the heck are you doing here? And I said, this is my company. You guys told me I needed sales experience. So every morning and every night, I have sales teams going out during the day, and then I restock and, continue to get more reps and run that out of the basement of my house. So he said, come back tomorrow. You're interviewing for a sales job. And so on Monday, interviewed for a sales job, and that was kind of where the economy was, kind of a tough spot. So I got a job as a sales rep in Virginia, and then HR sent me a letter, said, "Oh, don't move yet." And they actually merged the beds and stretchers team together, and so that job no longer existed. And they said, "No, we'll get you a sales job." But I had been waiting for years at this point. And Medtronic had a really, really awesome opportunity in Memphis. And so when I went to go in as an engineer, the deal was they would allow me to interview and try to get into sales after 1 year. And so I did that and ended up in sales, and, kind of progressed from there, and ended up being a consultant, market development, and ultimately managing the entire neuroscience portfolio for Medtronic. I had 57 reps or clinical people under me, and it was quite the run. It was amazing. I made a lot of connections with great people.
That's amazing. And what I love is the ingenuity and creativity to leverage yourself into a sales role, especially at Stryker. Getting a sales role at Stryker is I would put it up there. The only other company who I think is as difficult to get in as a sales rep starting out would be Intuitive. But that's really tough. And I love the fact that, and I think a lot of young reps and people who are trying to break into the industry, they listen to this show for advice. And my thing is like, look, medical sales, in my opinion, of all the sales jobs out there, has to be one of the, if not the most difficult sales role. And so if you're not good at figuring out a way creatively to get yourself sold into that role for your first gig, you're going to struggle. And so I love the fact that you decided like, hey, I'm going to create my own mini sales MBA and just do it, And if anything, I think if you look at like history of Stryker, like the more established Stryker presidents and Intuitive especially, a lot of them got started with door-to-door selling, like of Cutco knives. Gallo Winery is another one that's, just because it is like cold calling and door-to-door sales is so difficult. But if you last, like, I think you're able to leverage yourself. So it's amazing that you built that like real life sales MBA for yourself.
Yeah, I do have to say, I sucked at first.
I think all of us did, because I did that too. But that's how we ended up in med device. Because if we were really great at it, we probably wouldn't have ended up in med device. We would have just stayed, in those roles.
Yeah. So it took a while to learn, and the MBA of hard knocks. So but I adapted, took sales courses, all the gurus. So it was pretty cool.
I love that. And your background, I love just kind of reading from your LinkedIn. I want to touch on this real quick, which is, for one, this is the first on this show, at least. You are the first guest to have won President's Club and to earn patents. So you have patents for a minimally invasive spine implant system. So I feel like I should come up with my own award for that, which is if you won President's Club and you have a patent, you should get some kind of award for that. But on the President's Club side, just for the reps who are listening, when did you win? What was it for? And then what's your best advice to those who are trying to achieve the most prestigious sales award in our industry?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I won President's Club quite a few times. As a manager.
Hey man, you're on the right show. This is if there's a show, this is the place to brag about that. Please.
Yeah. So, some of the President's Club was multiple year President's Club. Some of it was, just showing up to a new territory. And it's easy to win President's Club if you're going, let's say I'm in Dallas and I flip to a competitive company and then, I won President's Club because I just flipped a couple relationships, a couple doctors. But all the times I won President's Club, it was moving to a completely new market. I went from Florida, which is new from Memphis, and then out to Colorado, and then back to, as a manager, the Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. And so one of the things that I like to do, well, I guess there's two things. Number one, I like to replicate other people's success. So before I do a sales call, I'll go ahead and call 5 or 6 other reps that I really, really respect. And I'll say, hey, this is my customer I'm trying to call. And, what do you think? And then I try to poke holes in my sales. What would they possibly come back with? Why wouldn't they? And solve problems for them. And the other thing is, what do you do when no one's looking? And by that, I mean, you don't stop working. You pick up that phone and you make the 2, 3, 4 extra calls. As you're going home at night, can you stop into 1 or 2 extra customers and just see if there's an opportunity for you to solve their problems? And when you become someone that can solve people's problems, they want you to be around them and they respect you. Now, the downside of that in the medical device world, especially if you're in the trauma world, is they won't do cases without you. They won't do surgeries without you. And so you become, kind of the golden handcuffs, so to speak, to your customers, which is great. I mean, that's how you feed your family.
100%. No, and I think it's just great advice. I think too often people forget that what makes a great salesperson is somebody who actually is able to solve problems and be looked at as a trusted partner to a customer, right? And I think as a rep, for you covered over 30 states, and you've been in a lot of situations, a lot of accounts and stuff. I think developing that level of respect and authority, I'm sure also opens up physicians and other peers who you worked with in the hospital to come to you for help outside of your own job. Did that happen to you often?
Yeah. There's a lot of credibility to designing implants for spine surgery. And, I would learn from the best surgeons in the world as we're going to all these different cases, procedures, and, with the engineering background, the background and experience with these top consultants in the world, and just getting my hands dirty as even a farmer, we were able to, in real time, help solve really complex procedures, cases. And, it's not like there's a book on, hey, this person crashed into the center column of a bridge and their entire spine is in pieces. It's pretty, every case is so unique and so different. And so when they'd call you, you had to be prepared for everything. And, that was one of the ways that I really gained a lot of trust in that. And so that's why they trusted me. And once you're all over the world and they kind of know, hey, you're bringing someone in as a consultant, you kind of have that credibility. It's a little different than the day-to-day rep, because certainly the day-to-day rep is important and, they're the right-hand person of the customer. But sometimes, especially with new customers or complex procedures, it is nice to say, hey, this person's an expert because of X, Y, and Z. So I did have that kind of, I was blessed with that opportunity that they looked at me as the expert.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. And I think it's good for us to hear this. Now, to kind of transition, I discovered you the day that you posted that video, but maybe for the audience, one is like, what is a glioblastoma, and what was that day like for you in terms of like, how did you find out? And if you can if it's okay with you, to share that experience.
Yeah. I had been feeling a little off for about a year and just couldn't quite put my finger on it. And so I was at the University of Miami and I was sponsoring, I had the sales team there and I was actually sponsoring a neuro program for them. So, shake hands, kiss babies type of deal, say hello to everybody and make sure everything went smooth. And on my way home, I was, remember I said I always make that extra phone call, that extra whatever. So I had a conference call with one of my reps saying, hey, how do we build the pipeline for this opportunity or that opportunity? And I found out later, he said I started acting a little weird. And just before I got home, I told him, hey, I got to go. And I felt very nauseous. And I woke up with my window being smashed out of my car. And the ambulance was taking me to a local hospital. And it was about a day or two when I actually woke up. I had another seizure. And so I had a seizure. That's what happened, why I blacked out. And I broke my back in three or four spots from jumping the car into a ditch. Now, for whatever reason, I was very adamant about collision avoidance when I purchased my vehicle. And so it stopped. It stopped me. And so although I broke my back, I didn't have a head-on collision at 60, 70 miles an hour. And so that was a real blessing. And when I woke up in the hospital, I looked at the PAC system myself. I read my own MRIs and CTs. And I said, well, that's not good. I've looked at a lot of MRIs and CTs. And so I scrolled through and I sent them to, some of the best doctors in the world that really take a lot of time. And, they have the ability to see where are your motor functions, where are your memory, depression, and all that. And so I texted them. I said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but on my way home from your event, this happened. And so they said, get down here as soon as possible. And so with the multiple fractures on my spine, I left against medical advice and went to one of the top surgeons in the world at University of Miami. And they really did a lot. They took care of me very well and had a total growth resection right away. And, certainly mapped all my brain functionings like a DTI to make sure that I was having the minimal cognitive loss, motor functions. And, so now it's a joke. Like I'll do bow and arrow and I'll beat my wife and I'm really competitive. So like we'll do skeet shoot and, I really, really try to do well. I don't let my girls beat me in Mario Kart. So, that's a joke, but, So I had a great surgery, very thankful. They actually used the equipment that I had sold to them a couple years prior.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it like navigation equipment or
navigation? Yeah.
Okay,
So
nice.
they were using the equipment I sold to them and my team sold to them. And so I knew I was in good hands with the surgeon, and I knew that we had the best technology, for the best outcome. Now, I didn't know it was glioblastoma. And there was 10 or 15 of these residents, fellows.
You just knew that you saw like a mass on the MRI and CT scan. You're like, okay, we need to get that out. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
No biopsy or anything like that. And so everyone from the university, they all knew me, and they were all kind of standing outside the operating room. My team was, running the navigation system to help make sure everything was smooth for my surgery. And I'm really thankful they were there. They were awesome. They did a great job. And, it was pretty emotional for them. So Dr. Kumatar did my surgery, great guy. And 2 weeks later, I got the pathology. And from one of my friends, they said when they were in the tumor board and they found that I had glioblastoma and such an aggressive form of glioblastoma based on the pathology, there was a lot of tears that were shed because these have been my friends and my colleagues for 10, 15 years. And so when they told me my diagnosis, and my wife was with me, she's a clinical researcher for neuroscience, she dropped to the floor at my doctor's office and just curled in a ball and cried, and which in some ways helped me, right? Because now I have to take care of her. I have to be a stone. I have to be the rock for her because I need to be there to support her and all that. And so it got me into a mindset. And that mindset was, we can fight this, and we can look at the positive every day, or we can lay down, cry about it, whine about it, and, let death take me. And so from that moment on, I was 100% committed to being positive, enjoying every single part of my life that I possibly could. Every night, instead of just saying, hey, kids, go to bed, I jump up in when it's time to go to bed, and we read books together, and we say, oh, what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? What did you do something kind for someone today? And it's honestly, it's been a blessing. I say it's every year I'm here is like dog years, because every minute, to the most part, I'm very present. And if I told you this is the last piece of cake you're ever going to have, I want you to enjoy that piece of cake. And you take a bite of that cake and, you're like Gordon Ramsay, right? The texture, the moisture, the sugar, it's so delicious. And so I get to do that. And I hope other people can kind of look at that. And even if it's just a little bit, if they give their kids a 7-second hug, 1 7-second hug, we're all going to die eventually. And if you could go back to, in your 30s, I was, just turned 37. If you could go back at 37 and you had 15 more minutes with your kid, and you could hug them and kiss them and have them tell you about your day while you're still healthy, it's like, man, what a blessing, right? And so every morning, especially in the beginning, and I need to make sure I do that, when my eyes opened from the bed, I was like, wow, what a blessing to be here. How lucky am I? And as the days and years go on, you have to keep reminding yourself. It's like taking a shower, if you don't take a shower every day, you stink. So, you have to have that mindset of what a blessing to be here and I get to do this.
No, I completely agree. And for the audience, I mean, I think most people know, but just for context, glioblastoma, if you haven't guessed by now, it's a form of brain cancer and the most aggressive brain cancer with very, very low survival rate. So about only 25% of patients actually make it past the first year. So, Mike, I kind of want to touch on like some positives here, which is you are how many months out are you from your diagnosis?
27, almost 28 months at this point. And yeah, so the one thing that I'm sorry, I got sidetracked a little bit. My tumor grew back from the time I had my surgery to the time radiation had started. And it was that's how aggressive this particular, everyone's a little different. And there's not a huge percentage of glioblastomas even that grow back within 2-3 weeks. And it was a third of the size. And so, my friends, my colleagues, when they looked at that for my mask fitting, I mean, there was tears in their eyes because it's not a good sign, right? And so we were convinced that we had to do everything that we could possibly do to fight this. Every inch, like football or whatever, it's like a little percentage here and there. Those things add up. And like I said, I'm pretty competitive. So I've done 11 full Ironmans, like 30 or 40 marathons. And
that's insane. I'm pretty big into fitness myself, but I'm not doing any Ironmans. That's really impressive.
Yeah. It was like I said, I like competition to try to do the best I can. I wear Optune, and the more you wear it, the more effective it is. So I had a month where I was actually at 99%.
What do you wear? What?
This is called Optune.
Optune. Okay.
Yeah. So it's electrical field, and it goes front and back and side to side, and it disrupts the cancer's ability to grow and divide. And so,
got it.
That was something that my wife did so much research, and it was something that we knew if we were all in on it, we could make a meaningful difference. And my ability to get up every day with my kids, my ability to spend an extra month, week, day, And so I've adapted very well to it. It can be a pain sometimes, but
to geek out a little bit with you, who makes that technology? And
yeah, so it's made by a company called Novacure, and really it's one of the only advances in glioblastoma. One of the very few. They've had a little bit of chemo and stuff like that, but it's been basically the only advancement in 40, 50 years for glioblastoma. And, I take full advantage of it, and I'm thankful that there was some crazy genius behind the Wizard of Oz style that said, I'm going to save somebody's life and I'm going to help somebody. Because it's been working for other cancers too. So they're about to get, lung cancer approval, small cell lung cancer, I say this wrong, mesothelioma or something like that. I actually got a family member that ended up
mesothelioma. Yeah. I just remember because the late night commercials that run on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So once I had a family member that had that, and they did some research and they knew how well I was doing. So up in Michigan, a great uncle, so a little bit distant family, they're doing fantastic. And it's really exciting to see other people, not just me, outliving the odds.
Absolutely. I don't want to go back to, but I do want to touch on something, which is, and I'm happy to see that you're doing well. And I can't predict the future, but I think because you're so competitive and because of, and at least this is my belief, that there's something to be said about patients who have miraculous and extraordinary outcomes in their ability to find fulfillment in life, not be angry and stressed out and just be overall positive and keep finding that I don't think it's by accident. I was looking this up so that, again, so there's a 5% of patients, they survive past that 5 years. And then there's one lady, since you're very competitive, you might know her name, Carmen Rice, who's the longest living survivor. And she's been essentially cancer-free for over 20 years. And she had stage 4 glioblastoma, which gave her only 6 months to live. And so I have a feeling that you'll be up there with her just because of your approach to this and the way you've kind of engineered your life to maximize your ability to spend as much time, like every day with your family. I want to go back to the day that this happened, or at least that week and month, but what aside from appreciating the time that you have, because back then, I think, you have a much better outlook now because you made it past the first year, but the first year you probably woke up thinking, okay, any day now. But what kind of things does that make you change in terms of, you have 2 little girls, your daughters back then, how old were they?
Oh gosh, they're 7 and 9, so 5 and 7. There's a book that's called The Daily Stoic, and
Ryan Holiday, great.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that in the Bible had really helped me kind of get through those first couple months. And one of the favorite kind of quotes that I like to think about is, we live. I can't remember, it's Marcus Aurelius or Seneca, one of those really smart people. It says, we live 1,000 tragedies in our lifetime, and most of them never actually come true. And so how I kind of looked at that is, listen, we're all going to die, okay? But I don't need to live that death every morning when I wake up. I don't need to be missing my daughter every morning when they're still here. And so that really kind of put into my perspective of enjoy the time. When you're going to die, you're going to die. Do everything you can to prevent it. But if you can't control it, try not to worry about it. And it's hard, right? I mean, I have an engineering mind, so I'm very much a check the box of, am I doing everything I can? Yep. Okay. Then put that away, put that to the side, go fishing, go have fun, spend time with your grandma. So.
No, and I think it's a good lesson too. It's, I try and live that way as well. You just never know, right? You never know. And for me, just to kind of get a little personal, a few weeks ago, I went on sort of an excursion with other entrepreneurs. So one of those things is that we visited the cemetery. We had to write like a letter to our loved ones. So I wrote one to my wife, one to my son, and it just made me realize, like, oh wow, like there's some things that I should take care of. Not on the financial sense, just like, like if something happens to me while my son's little, like who should he look to for mentorship, right? Of my friends, like what kind of lessons can I impart on him, like, and so that kind of got me into the habit of every week now I started an email address for him. And so every week I'm trying to force myself to just think of like some lesson I can write and email it to him. Unfortunately for my future kids, the other ones, they're just going to get like a copy of that because I'm just going to copy paste it at work because I put some time into, but the lesson still stands, But, you meant, what were some of the things that you decided that you wanted to do with your daughters that you say, okay, we got to do this now? Like what kind of things, what kind of memories? Because I feel like that first year, as tragic as it was probably, in terms of like experiences with your daughter, amazing, because you were like, we're going to do all of it. So what were some great memories you made that year?
Well, my wife says, man, you've been living like YOLO. We've been everyone expects you to die. You only live once, and now I'm keep on ticking. They're like, yeah, eventually the chicken's got to come home to roost here. you can't YOLO it forever. And I'm like, is that a competition? I don't know. So we went to Paris, right? I went deep sea fishing and I caught a giant sailfish with my buddy on a kayak, actually. I did that. I did the
I've
Duet.
never heard of that. I've heard of deep sea fishing, but usually you're in a big boat because the fish could like kill you. But you did it in a kayak. What kind of fish did you catch?
Sailfish, a giant one.
On a kayak?
Yeah, I'll send you the picture.
Oh, please. All right. For those who are just not like you don't know much about fishing, a sailfish is the size of, if not bigger than the kayak that
Yes.
Mike was in, which is insane.
Yeah, it pulled me. It was like pulling me everywhere, No, it's just, I actually, not that I'm a great fisherman. I go with charters because I don't want to get hurt or, I want someone to watch. My wife wants someone to watch me. I actually made the centerfold of a kayak fishing angler magazine, and I had the Optune on, which is sensitive.
I want that photo. You need to send that to me. How have you not posted that on LinkedIn yet? Oh, you got to post that on LinkedIn. You got to post that on LinkedIn. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I told my wife, I said, well, you didn't know you're going to marry a centerfold model and a country music star. I sing, but not well.
Tell us about the country music thing, by the way. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. So, my wife, it's kind of like, these are pretty warm. So I have to go in the afternoon in Florida. I live in Florida. And so we walk the loop and I sit there and power walk with the girls that are my wife's friends because she doesn't want me to be by myself in case there's a seizure or whatever, especially in the beginning. So I was out there power walking, and I'm just thinking there's a movie called P.S. I Love You, and that gentleman has glioblastoma. And so he does all these really kind and nice things for his wife. And I hope I didn't spoil it for you guys, but it's a 15-year-old movie. So if you're going to watch it, highly recommend, but I definitely highly recommend you grab a box of tissues because I went up to the point where I got diagnosed with glioblastoma. I've only cried 4 or 5 times since I've been in high school. And that was one of them. And that was before I was diagnosed. So I was thinking to myself, wow, this gentleman, he did all these very kind things for his wife. What could I do, or what am I going to miss out on? Because that's what most people are sad about. Like their fear of dying is fear of missing out on something important. So I said, well, probably the number one thing that I would be worried about missing is, the day my daughters get married. And I think that is one of the things that I wish and want to be part of. And so Tim McGraw has a song that's called My Little Girl, where he's in the song, he sings about, her growing up and her, going and flying on her own and wings and stuff. And Tim McGraw has a bunch of little girls, and his father passed away from glioblastoma. So as I was chit-chatting with the girls, we said, you know what? I know this is like a crazy long shot, but why don't I just ask if I could do a duet with Tim? And so I sat down in one take, and the neighbor lady is a marketing genius, so she kind of did the iPhone camera, right? No editing, no nothing. One take, and I just said, hey, this is what I want to do. It's personal and all that stuff. And so I don't even have Facebook. And so I had a couple friends put it on TikTok. I put it on LinkedIn, and I think somebody else might have put it on Facebook. I don't have TikTok either. And this video had 36 million views within 24 or 48 hours. And so I get a phone call, and it's Tim McGraw's people. And they're like, you were hard to find because you don't have really a social media footprint, and you didn't put your contact information on there. I was like, well, I've never done this before. I don't know. And so Tim said his phone was smoking, and Faith Hill's phone was just smoking. They had to put their phones in separate rooms because it was ringing off the hook saying, hey, you got to see this guy. And so Tim knew how. Yeah.
And here, I'm bringing up the photo. Here's the photo of you guys.
Yeah. And my mom is there on the left. And my
my
wife.
God. And look, your little girls are adorable.
There.
That's me. So did you went to his house, or he came to you guys? How'd this work?
Yeah. So because of his father, he knew how terrible glioblastoma can be and how aggressive it can be. And so, yeah, it's a Good Morning America.
Yeah, you made it to GMA.
Yeah. So he said, hey, we'll fly you up to Nashville. And I had some really great friends in the medical device world that are friends with the Grand Ole Opry team as well. And so they said, hey, we'll shut down the Grand Ole Opry. You can dance on stage on the circle with the girls. And then we kind of mashed those videos together. One of me in a house that he was about to do a new album, which just came out. And so he was busy working, and he's got all those shows he's doing, like 1886 or some of those shows. And he squeezed some time in for me to actually sing a duet with him. And that was during chemo radiation, so my memory was not 100%, because it's right in the short-term memories where my tumor was. But, I powered through. I did the best I can. I'm not a great singer, but I did get a couple lessons right before that happened. And my kids always give me a hard time about my singing, so I hope they like it when Tim sings with me. Maybe it'll even out. They have not seen the video, and that will be played for them on their wedding day. And so,
oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah. So we dressed up in a tuxedo. We had they wore like miniature wedding dresses, and I carried them. And
oh my God. And I guess, they're young enough now, so yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
I got to ask, what's the backup plan because there's an if you make it there.
Well, I'll just have to dance with them, and maybe Tim will come by and say hello. I don't know.
I love. Sorry, I have to take a breath because I had to mute myself because I was choking up badly. God, I knew that was going to happen at some point on this episode. Okay, as I collect myself, I love the fact that with such a difficult situation, you fully found a way to embrace it and find fulfillment. And more importantly, oh God, okay, that like father to father, and from like one man to another, I really admire how you very quickly put yourself aside and did what you had to do to support your wife, your daughters. That's what a great man does.
Well, I appreciate that, and I've had a fantastic father as a role model, like a lot of really good family and friends, and so I always think like, well, my dad's my hero, and I'm like, well, what would he do if he could? And so what I do, you mentioned the notes that you write. So I actually take that book from Ryan Holiday, and I have a series that I've been putting together. It's called Dear Brooke and Bridget. And it is like, I take the iPhone and I just go like this, and I say, oh, hey girls, and then I'll look. I just actually go day by day on the book, because how do you come up? Yeah, it's like, how do you come up with 40 years of life lessons when you may or may not be there? So it's the whole idea, and they're storing it on Cadre, which is like a mental health app, and it's open to anybody that wants to see it. And so the idea is that
How do you find it? You just type in how do you spell cadre?
CADRE. It's an app.
Okay. And you just cadre Mike Hugo or?
Yeah, I gotta see if they've opened them all up to the whole thing, but the idea is that they be open up to everybody for parenting advice.
I love that.
And so,
I love that.
What do you do? Lending money to your family, or grit, or just if your friends are not nice to you, how do you respond? And so, just every lesson I can think of is what I kind of put in those videos. And obviously I cheat off of Ryan Holiday's book or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations book and kind of give my spin or my take on it as well.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Ryan Holiday is a best-selling author by essentially repackaging ancient wisdom into digestible forms for millennials like you and I.
Yeah. No, it's a great one.
No, I really love that. I want to make sure also, I want to touch on something we talked about it before getting on the show, which is the Promising Pathway Act. And so I told you off air that like if there's a show for you to like for somebody, not just to brag, but also to hit back and like call certain issues out, this is it. So what's the Promising Pathway Act, and kind of give us like your perspective on the current state of things for patients with terminal illnesses and everything, and what needs to change.
So the Promising Pathway Act is a bill that's kind of just been stalled out in the Senate and the House. And so the problem, everything is problem and solution. And the problem is there's a lot of rare or terminal diseases that have, like I said, 100% terminal rate. And so the FDA has, fantastic job at trying to keep people safe. And that's great. And I respect that. If you're looking at a new knee to, a titanium knee to a nickel-plated knee, right? You want to see placebos. You want to see, make sure it's safe before you cause real harm to a patient. But there hasn't been a lot of movement and success in these really, really difficult or small patient populations in terminal cases. And so we're actually being withheld from opportunities to treat patients that have terminal diseases. And, I have more access from the medical world than basically anybody, right? And I have I work with foundations, and I can't get some of these medicines that have shown promise. They have shown safety. And the other option there is to die, with a 5-year, 4 or 5% survival rate. And so I know they put placebos in these clinical trials. And so there is a story where one of the ladies actually quit her job to take care of their son full time. And so they're living now off of one income, driving 4 hours each way, 2-3 days a week. And come to find out, unfortunately, the child passed away, and they were getting a sugar pill. And it's wrong. And it's going to be like history will look back at this and say, hey, that's wrong. And so, I did not sign up for some clinical trials specifically because they have placebos, and I'm like, well, if there's a 50% chance or 30% chance, whatever percent chance that I'm going to get a placebo, why would I do that when I know the outcome of the placebo is death? It's wrong. And so I actually got into it a little bit with in the Senate with Elizabeth Warren and the FDA at one of the meetings I attended there. And they're like, well, we need the quality of the FDA. We need to keep the gold standard. And I'm like, you're murdering people for nothing. I know 1 + 1 = 2. You don't have to kill people to know that they're going to die if you give them the same thing we've been giving them for 50 years. I mean, it's wrong. And so certainly for things that are already have a high success rate and you're just looking to perfect it and make it better. Listen, I've read the book on the placebos, right? And being positive and all that. Trust me, I could recite that as well as any, chief clinical person that there is. I understand placebos, but I don't understand is why you're murdering people. And I use that very disruptive and decisive language because I want to get the point across that it's not necessary. We have clinical history databases. And so the promising pathway, what it does is after it's been proven to be a little bit effective, you get provisional approval for rare diseases and terminal diseases. And so you can get access to that medicine. And I'm going through that right now where I'm trying to get, it's basically an iron knockoff. And it's close to iron on the periodic table. And the idea is that there's no side effects. It's an oral pill and really successful. I can't get access to it. And we even had people donate very large amounts of money. And I would have to pay out of pocket quite a bit of money. But I want to do it because it's very promising. Can't do it. And there's Surbaxum is a good one, right? It's 30% success, at however many years. That's an off-the-shelf vaccine. And, they publish these data, these phase 1, phase 2 data. They're like, oh, it's so promising, so amazing. But you can't have it for another 15 years. So I'm like 10 years worth of glioblastoma patients, 10 generations of glioblastoma patients are going to die before you allow them to even try to get it. It's wrong. And I'm not saying people are mean or bad and doing evil things on purpose. I just think that we're using a 1970s based system when we can use real world data and follow patients and get the placebos kind of apples to apples.
Yeah, and I think that it's fair to say that if you're a patient with a 0% chance, even if something has a 5% chance of working, that's better than nothing. And if you're going to go through that, I mean, I'm just trying to be empathetic here and put myself in that situation. I would be livid if I do that and I'm like, oh, there's a chance that I'm going to be getting nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So because the other thing is that, if you're hypothetically, you go through a trial and you're getting, whether it's a placebo or the whatever the treatment that you're getting, you technically stop doing the other stuff too. And so, and I agree. I mean, it might be provocative, but you're absolutely right, is that it is, let's say, indirectly and not purposely, but murdering people, because essentially if someone goes to do a trial, they get picked and then randomly they're being given the placebo, that patient is probably assuming that oh no, I'm getting it. So I'm going to stop doing this other stuff and I'm going to be doing this trial. Right. So I completely agree. We don't have, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So one last thing. So this is Optune, right? So the 5-year survival is, 4 or 5%. And with Optune it goes up to, 12.9%. And if you're super user over 90%, it goes to 29%. So that's 600% increased chance that you're going to live. Those placebo-based clinical trials, a lot of them exclude a 500 to 600% chance of making it 5 years. So they exclude this. So, and I may get a placebo. And so we're really big advocates on doing the right thing, right? The right thing for everyone. So anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, what I wanted to ask is that, again, with our audience, myself and everything, I think, awareness is great as well, but action. Tell us more about the bill. Who sponsors this bill? I mean, what can me and my audience and, how do we, where do we need to apply pressure is the question.
Yeah. So the bill is bipartisan, right? You got Beau Biden, John McCain. They died from glioblastoma, right? The right and the left.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah.
I know about Joe Biden. I didn't know about McCain as well. Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you're famous, if you're not famous, or if you're right wing, left wing. It's going to treat you the same. And so it is a bipartisan bill. I will give you a link where you can type in your senators and your representatives' information and just call them. Just, there are some form letters that you can write. It has not been super successful, the form letters. We've had thousands go out. So it's almost better that you just find your representative, and the link that I can send you, and hopefully you can put it in there, it will give you who your representative is based on your zip code, and just say, hey, why would you not support this, right? It's obviously a crazy time in politics right now, but it's something that should be supported by everybody, because there's a lot of people in the world. I think I saw some crazy statistic that, every 3 or 4 people are going to have cancer at some point in time in their life. And so if you have a family of 4, chances are one of them is going to have cancer. So this will impact everyone eventually. So let's get some opportunities to increase our ability to cure it. Look at Magic Johnson and AIDS, right? They put the resources there, and they were able to get, it under control.
100%. Yeah, please share that link. And I wonder, is it the congress.gov link? Because I just quickly Googled it.
I don't know if that one will have.
Share the link with me, and for the audience listening, check the show notes below and just click that link, and we'll figure out something off air as well to try and drive this forward. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on the show, but just before we go, any kind of like final thoughts and stuff, and just
yeah. So the biggest thing you could do for me, right? And I'm very blessed that I get to look at things a little bit differently. And honestly, it's been a blessing. I want to get into heaven, and I want to make my children proud of me, right? And I want to be a productive member of society. The best thing that you can do, and all your audience could do for me, is when you go home, put your phone down, have a real meaningful conversation with someone that you love, and give them a 12-second hug, because 12 seconds releases your hormones to reduce your cortisol. And I'm telling you, you will feel, it's like meditation. It's like you have this pressure off your chest. And, what is so important scrolling through Facebook or whatever, you can't take 12 seconds and hug someone that you love. So that would, to me, if 10 people did that, that would be a meaningful outcome in my life. So I appreciate it, man. If you get the word out, that would be pretty awesome.
Done. And we will clip this as well, so we can try and drive this as much as possible on social. Mike, thank you so much for coming on and like sharing your story and being a source of inspiration. And hopefully we can have you back on in the near future when we get some pressure and push the Promising Pathway Act to actually go through. There's absolutely no reason for it not to be through. I don't want to get political, but like during COVID, all kinds of things got pushed through pre-FDA approval because of the emergency acts that were in place. And so this is something that I think is worth fighting for patients. So other than that, Mike, is there anything else aside from your, I know you're on LinkedIn, but is there anywhere else online that you would like our audience to go and follow you on or check you out on?
TikTok? I don't have TikTok. I have Facebook, or not Facebook. I have Instagram. So definitely have, it's like Michael Hugo 602 or something like that. So I have, it's public. So you can look at all my fishing pictures and the family stuff. I tried to just, live every day like it's my last and try to enjoy it as much as possible. So I'm still not perfect. Nobody is. So
I love it. Mike, thank you so much for joining. I want to thank the audience. Be sure to check out the show notes for those links. I'm your host, Omar Khatib, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.